Hello, internet friends. Whoa, my name is Bay, and welcome to the Shadowlands Alpha, Elemental Shaman, first pass, first impressions. A lot of gobbledygook to get through here. I'm going to kind of go over the sort of core things, but then because of those core things, these fundamental baseline, the decoupling of your AoE, you're decoupling your AoE from single target, the return of fulmination, the return of some moving while casting, and just one new talent. But because of the aforementioned things, how much stuff now smushes together other options and potential for build diversity. Not talking about numbers, this is alpha, everything is subject to change, everything could be changed, nothing could be changed, who knows, but situations abound may call for different ability combinations and talents. We'll start off with the bad ones here in a moment, but of course, this video today is brought to you by my partner and sponsors of today's video. It's by Corsair or Elgato. You need a new pair of headset? One of these? How about new mouse? How about like the new RBG Scimitar Elite? All the side buttons, the side panel is actually customizable. It can slide depending on how big your hand is. A lot of freaking buttons returning. How about a capture card? You want to capture card something? Elgato stuff. There you go. How about a new keyboard? Is your current keyboard all poo-poo pants? Then I'm a K70 fan myself. This is actually literally the box for my keyboard. But links down below to both Corsair and Elgato products. Corsair gear and peripherals and Elgato gear. 10% off, free shipping. Supports what I do here. Keeps the show on the stream and everything in between going. I was a fan of Corsair stuff even before I signed with them, re-signed with them this year again, so another whole year of working together with them. And I mean, my PC stuff was already Corsair before I even, like I said, signed with them. But if you're looking for stuff, I know a bunch of people in my community have taken advantage of it. And if you would like to keep me doing this, then that's one way to help me out and keep doing this. And doing this, of course, if you've missed anything from any of the doing this discussion, channel guide, !guide over in my Twitch chat, or it's just down below in the video description box underneath all the social links and the Corsair Elgato links, all down there, is where everything goes. All of the dungeon runs, all of the class write-up videos, all of the actual huge long testing streams, if you're interested in my slow, methodical, analytical way of going through things, down below where links are. All right. Before a YouTube comment says that he doesn't even talk about anything important for 3 minutes, even though I have woven it together, and obviously a little bit of plugging has to happen because YouTube is a thing. Core things. So we have Chain Heal. And notice again, Shaman spellbook, Elemental spellbook. So Chain Heal is back. It's mostly fine. I think it's the Restoration Shaman version. So it heals for way more than I think it should. But it also completely eats your mana. So both Enhancement and Elemental have Chain Heal. There's that. We have Flame Tongue weapon back, which I don't know for the life of me why it's back. You have Primal Strike back as well, which is just sort of part of the journey. I'm not going to hem and haw this too much. We talked about it on the stream for a while. Sure, it only does extra fire damage. It doesn't have the extra spell power or the spell crit built into it like it used to. It just is... It's there. Healing Stream Totem is also back. This is a big one. You're noticing I have 2 charges. It's currently bugged with Echo of the Elements right now. Echo of the Elements for Restoration gives 2 charges, but you should only have 1 as Elemental Shaman. But a little bit extra healing on the move, an extra GCD to throw out to help your group out a little bit. Same thing with like Chain Heal. You can toss that in your downtime or moving or can't DPS a boss. Might as well help heal. Your mana comes back super fast anyway because it's not tied to DPSing. It's utility mana. So use your utility mana. Throw some heals out there. Searing Totem is back. I have no freaking idea when or where. I was using it in the dungeon footage, right? So if you go to the dungeon video and you want to watch that, that's linked down below as well, or on the channel guide. I was there with MrGM and 2 viewers of my stream that are helping out testing stuff, and then Luxthos. We were talking about Searing Totem a bunch. You can hear our back and forth and our banter in the video. It's neat. It's like a tool to use on the move. Maybe again, I was casting like all of my totems on the pole and then getting into the actual DPS rotation, which kind of burned an extra global of fire elemental instead of just casting a lightning bolt. But maybe the math works out that this is actually better. It's more damage than X lightning bolts over time while you're also lightning bolting. It's just another flame shock if you want to look at it that way. Enhancement has a little bit more synergy with it, but it's totems. Totems are back. People want totems back. Sure. Lightning shield for Elemental Shaman literally almost does nothing. It may proc on AoE effects that bosses do and that mobs do and stuff, and obviously it'll do damage when things slap you in the face. But I don't know. Let me pull over my big notes here. Big notes. All right, big changes here before we start slapping the target dummies to illustrate some of these things. The biggest ones, as I said in the opening, is the decoupling of your AoE and your single target, and even your AoE feeding more so into your single target. Baseline stuff, Elemental Mastery is still Elemental Overload. Still has the chance based on your mastery to trigger a second cast of the same target. It's Lightning Bolt, Lava Burst, Chain Lightning, and Elemental Blast. And also the Ice Fury cast can also overload. But it's 85% normal damage. That hasn't changed. However, the potential for your mastery as elemental to not be poo-poo caca is there because of other build potentials. Lava Surge still 15%. I know you're asking about shocks immediately off the bat. Flame Shock still has a 6-second cooldown. Frost Shock, no cooldown. Earth Shock, no cooldown. Just Flame Shock has a cooldown. And to go over Flame Shock again as well, Flame Shock, which is all shamans, 18 seconds duration now. You got 24. We don't have any leveling up ranks right now. A lot of other classes have level up ranks. Shaman has none. Druid, if you just watch the Druid coverage, they have many. So I'm thinking that's still in development. There could be a level up that gives us more Flame Shock time. 18 seconds is fine. I was very clear about the obvious choice of why it's 18 seconds. I mean, it's still Pandemic's back to 24. But Blizzard does not want, as a design fundamental baseline goal of their video game, they do not want Elemental Shamans as a cross-dot, multi-dot class. The very, very slight amount of cross-dotting you get, 3 targets. With Flame Shock at 18 seconds, you can get 3 targets with optimal play, where you go Flame Shock, 6 seconds later, Flame Shock, 6 seconds later, Flame Shock, 6 seconds later, your first one falls off, you Flame Shock again, and then you rotate through with perfect play, you do 3 targets. 2 targets easy, you can Pandemic them no problem, because you can get... I missed, because it's the boss dummy. RIP. So you can get your first one up, you can layer your second one, and then once you go back to your first one again, you will Pandemic its duration. So you will add additional onto it. So you're going to go wham, 24 seconds, and you go back over here, wham, bam, and then you're back at it. So 2 targets is easy, 3 targets with optimal play. The only other way to get more Flame Shocks out there is with Surge of Power, which of course we will get into more in a moment. That's the big thing about it. It's 2 dots easily with Pandemic, 3 rotating, down from 24 seconds on live right now. And let's go back over here to the core stuff. We were talking about that. To get over to Flame Shock, obviously a core thing because of a Lava Surge. Fulmination. So Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning. And their overloads. It's important. And their overloads. Have a 50% chance to generate a stack of Fulmination. Up to 8 stacks. Earth Shock. Or Elemental Blast. More on that later. Will expend and discharge all stacks of Fulmination onto the target you hit with Earth Shock or Elemental Blast. Dealing... It's just... 10% spell damage per stack. So at 8 stacks, which is the maximum currently, we don't know if there's other things that are going to change that in the future. At 8 stacks, it's 80% of your spell power. It's a separate ability. It's Fulmination. It's not Earth Shock damage like it is right now. We'll see if we can build up some charges here. We have 2. So it is just Earth Shock and Fulmination. So immediately off the bat, it does not work with Master of the Elements right now. So little things like that to take into account. It may eventually work with that, unsure. But that is the big one. Lightning Bolt, single target, gives you stacks of fulmination. You do not get the quote-unquote reward or payoff like you are used to right now. Earth Shock is essentially a way to consume the fulmination stacks for additional nature damage on your main target. It is pretty okay damage, but it's stacked all the way up. You're going to probably want to use it at 6+, if not 7+, because of the damage compared to just hitting Lightning Bolt. Or the main goal of the Elemental Shaman overall here is to weave, get the sauce on things, and weave the meatballs. The meatballs now are a huge component of the entire payoff. Properly balancing your flame shocks up to 3, maybe even 4 with some balance of power in there, usually 2, and funneling that damage is the big payoff. Earth Shock is just extra. The other part of that, however, with Earthquake, this changes things a little bit. So Fulmination procs from Chain Lightning as well. But Chain Lightning also gives you the Tectonic Thunder or Seismic Thunder stacks. Let me poke Carol over here. Poke, commence the turnip. Carol was waiting to help me out here. Turnip me. Turnip me? Does you not see? Whisper. Turnip me. You mad lad. Yes! I don't have a turnip on. He got to copy his character over, so he actually has his abilities. But so now, Earthquake. Each time Chain Lightning hits more than one target, you build a stack of Seismic Thunder, which reduces the cast time of your Earthquake by 20% per stack up to 5 to make it instant. But now you see there, I have 7 stacks of Fulmination. So I'm also going to blast it with an Earth Shock. And right there, of course, I have Surge of Power talented. Surge of Power is bugged right now. It's actually activating all the time, so disregard it when I'm not looking at it. But for the most part, we'll just have it on the whole time because Ice Fury and Primal Elementalist haven't changed. Except for some damage numbers, which we'll get into a little bit. But Earthquake is actually hard castable. You just spam it if you want to. Which I'm not sure if this will be a thing. But Fire Mages with Flame Patch spam Flame Strike. And they don't have the extra bonus here, obviously, is the knockdown. You just saw it say immune on the turnip. It's immune to the knockdown. It already procced. So it's something that to think about. I don't know if it'll be a thing. With enough haste, you can overlap multiple Earthquakes. They do overlap. But with a 3-second base cast and it lasts for 6, by default, you can get 2. And it basically clips the first. But if you can get down to like a 1.5 or a 1-second cast time with a whole bunch of haste, an on-click trinket, lust, for example, you can just slam some Earthquakes in there and just stack that up for AoE and cleave. Currently, it has no target cap. Obviously, it is sort of light ticking damage until it stacks up, right? And obviously, it has the knockdown effect we've just spoken about. So, while AoEing, and that's it right there, good thing it procced. So that's an overload. So I overloaded on 2 targets, I believe. That was a double overload, right? So Chain Lightning, double overload here, could hit 3 targets, 6 hits. That gave me, it went away now, but it gave me 3 stacks because of the 1 cast and the double overloads. So again, mastery, question mark. And then there's the big Earth Shock there, I suppose, because it gives you fulmination stacks. So one feeds the other. You have to hit at least 2 targets, though. Your target plus 1 for Earthquake's Seismic Thunder to actually proc. But there, by default, this combination is... I already got... Look at it. Instant cast into Earth Shock. That was 7 stacks and the 5 stacks, respectively, of the ones you need. So there's a lot going on here because it's decoupled. It gives you the choice. And it gives you the ability to weave your abilities back and forth, which does lead me, we'll go right over here to Stormkeeper. What I was getting at in the beginning of the video, Ascendance is still maybe. Maybe, because you see the spellbook right there, other things that have returned. Spirit Walker's Grace, the new Fulmination in Seismic Thunder, which you just talked about. And if you haven't seen the Earthshock animation, it definitely is way bigger. But the big one there, and why I left it for comparing with Ascendance, is that Spirit Walker's Grace is back. 2-minute cooldown. You can cast for 15 seconds on the move. It does not currently work with Stormkeeper. You cannot cast Stormkeeper on the move yet, but I'm assuming that's a bug. So it makes Ascendance a little bit better because you can Spirit Walker's Grace Ascendance and be able to cast while moving big lava beams or just throwing tons of meatballs. But it still has no on cast. Ascendance is still on the GCD, so it still takes out 1.5 seconds or a little bit less based on your haste from the actual cooldown in the first place. Restoration Shaman's Ascendance basically casts like a pulse of Healing Tide Totem when you go into it. But Ascendance for both Elemental and Enhancement does nothing on cast, lasts for 15 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown. It has synergies here, but on a 3-minute cooldown, Icy Veins lasts for forever. It's a 30-second Icy Veins for Frost Mage on a 3-minute cooldown too. So this just needs a duration bump or a actual cooldown reduction. And I'm not going to talk about limited power. It sucks. It's trash. It's just bad. And the one note about Ice Fury that I want to go over real quick is that Frost Shock damage without Ice Fury, you are not going to be hitting Frost Shock on the move anymore. Unless you're saving your Fulmination stacks, Earth Shock does more damage as your instant on the move spam. And goodbye, Turnip. Thank you for your service. So this is going to be your button to hit when you're moving, not Frost Shock, unless you're Ice Fury windowed. And in that window, it does barely less damage than a Lightning Bolt, but obviously they are instant cast. So Ice Fury on the move makes a whole lot of sense. Primal Elementals for burst, and Surge of Power for all the time, because it's a lot of fun, and I like this talent a lot, and it has so many interactions. Let's get into more of them right now. Other notes. Let me go over here real quick. Earthshock is now your on the move button. Frost Shock damage is gutted for utility. Yep, Chain Lightning is 5 targets. I don't know if you saw that on the tooltip there. Chain Lightning is still 5 targets, but it's always been 5 targets for Elemental for the longest time. It's 3 targets for Restoration and Enhancement. Not a huge change there. So the one thing I was wondering is how Mastery scales with Chain Lightning. And I was told that we tested it, and it's weird. We saw it a little bit earlier when I cast 1 Chain Lightning, got 3 stacks, 1 from the cast and 2 for the overloads. Each target hit by Chain Lightning has a separate but diminished percentage chance to proc overload. So you can cast 1 Chain Lightning into 5 targets and potentially, super not gonna happen though, get the same effect as you would cast Stormkeeper, because Stormkeeper forces the overloads per target's hit. So 1 Stormkeeper Chain Lightning into 5 targets is 25 overloads. 1 Chain Lightning additional for every target hit. Which leads me to running over here real quick and explaining something. Stormkeeper is good. But what do you know about Echoing Shock? The new talent for Elemental Shaman, which is sort of going to be squished in the middle here, because I don't want to talk about Fire Elemental yet, or the other talent stuff, because Echoing Shock, and in some way Aftershock, and in a way Totem Mastery, they feed in to the potential new playstyle, or one that may see a lot of use. Again, this is alpha, but this is hilarious. Stormkeeper reads, you charge yourself with lightning, causing your next 2 lightning bolts to deal 150% more damage, and also causes your next 2 lightning bolts or chain lightning to be instant cast and trigger an elemental overload on every target. So lightning bolt gains the damage amp, chain lightning always overloads on every target hit. These cats better be alive. No one came over here and killed them, right? All right. We're gonna bring up the combat log here, because I think you need to watch this in real time. This is Frost Shock and stuff from earlier. No big deal. All right, Echoing Shock. 30-second cooldown, instant. And yes, I didn't know if I showed Spirit Walker's Grace is off the GCD. When we walked over here. This shocks the target for some elemental damage. Same as Elemental Blast. Elemental damage is Fire, Frost, and Nature. And creates an Ancestral Echo, causing the next damage or healing spell, which, truth be told, Echoing Shock Chain Heal is pretty big splash triage heal. Or in PvP, Echoing Shock and then hard casting a Surge on yourself, also beneficial. But anyway. So the spell with a cast a second time, 1.0 seconds later for free. So there is some weird things I want to clear up here about the later for free. You cannot echo, flame shock, change targets, and a flame shock plops out again. Doesn't work. The same target you hit echoes the same target you hit. Also, because the 1 second later currently, there is some weird travel time stuff where it's kind of like the Frost Mage Flurry Icicle or Ice Lance weaving, where you can send a spell and then Echoing Shock it after, and then it still echoes that one. It hasn't hit yet. So like Elemental Blast, then Echoing Shock, and then it echoes the blast, which I'll show you back on the target dummies. But there is some interplay with not having to put it up before every, but you can respond with it. So there's some like a baseline quality of life feel to it. But let me pull all these crazy cats. So we're going to pull 5 kitty cats. And we're going to drop Earth Elemental, because otherwise they would kill me. So Earth Elemental, get in there. Now, very simply, watch the combat log. Earthquake. Chain lightning. Earthquake. And then you squish them! Because they're bugged right now. You gotta squish the cats. Oh, get them, get them. Don't squish their weird griffiny faces. Yeah, we did it. All right. Anyway. Sorry about that. So yeah, did you see what happened there? Because every elemental shaman out there that thought Stormkeeper was weak since they lost the Legion version, wipe your mouths and pick up your jaw off the floor. In whatever order you see fit, right? Chain Lightning hits 5 targets. And we said before earlier, every single target hit by Chain Lightning that is forced to proc Elemental Overload also procs a Chain Lightning Overload. Now, because of the 1 second delay, you will obviously get a full stack for an instant Earthquake, but your GCD is too long, 1.5 seconds by default. You'd need 100% haste to get well, you need like 75% or more to be below the 1 second. At a 1.5 second GCD, 100% haste gives you a 0.75 second GCD. So big brain plays there. I don't know if that's even possible. Lust, haste stacking, haste click trinket, who knows? But you'll have to weave the instant Earthquake after you kind of waste a bunch of Fulmination on big targets. But then you got one more charge of Stormkeeper, so then you slam down another Earthquake right after that, right? So that's like the weird, ridiculous Chain Lightning Overload wombo combo. Because here, this is the echoed one, right? It echoed the Chain Lightning and echoed the Overloads. And then I cast one Earthquake, and then I cast the follow-up Chain Lightning, and then cast the Earthquake. So Echoing Shock has some, which again, Stormkeeper is so good, Unlimited Power sucks, and Ascendance is bad. We tested this for like a good solid almost 2 hours with different iterations and different spells. Currently, it does not work with Lava Burst, so we could not try to figure out if we could get Lava Burst weaves to get more CDR off of Fire Elemental. Things like that wouldn't work. It works with Elemental Blast, so you can actually fire off 4 Elemental Blasts if your first one echoes, and then your Echoing Shock one echoes as well. So there's a lot of things you can do there. Obviously, that would just mean damage burst potential, right? And if you rolled that many Elemental Blasts, you'd probably easily have the haste, crit, and mastery procs for the 10-second window. But currently, mastery is broken. It doesn't actually proc, so sure. And there's so much that happens with this spell, right? So let's see if we can do Elemental Blast real quick here if I move off. Get out of your lightning shield. No one needs you. But you can do some travel time things with it, right? So you can do this and then follow it up with the... And then... right? So, yeah, there's the Elemental Blast overload in there, too. It sort of works separately because that was the hard cast Elemental Blast, right? And then this was the Blast Echo, and it overloaded itself because it just duplicates whatever spell you just cast. And once it works with Lava Burst, there's going to be some interesting possibilities with Master of the Elements weaving, potentially Ice Fury weaving, where you can, obviously, you cast like a Lava Surge, and then you cast your Ice Fury, and then you cast your additional Lava Surge, and then you can cast your first thing, but then you can echo either an extra Ice Fury cast. There's some weirdness there, which could make them both echo on cast or both overload on cast, right? So there's all these things, like they work, but the moment you press certain things in what order determines the whole synergy in whatever you're doing. One thing I wanted to get into and why I've had Surge of Power done this whole time, and your elemental brains may have been putting it together now, is there was some talk about how Surge of Power has been bad for a long time. And it has been. It's been pretty bad for a while. You've been taking Primal Elementalist for burst fights or Ice Fury for anything else, essentially. But the possible combinations and weaving, let's say, Master of Elements, just because Liquid Magma Totem could be totally fine, though, depending on how trash pulls work in Shadowlands, so don't count it out. Earth and Rage is PvP. But you could take Echoing Shock and weave with Master of Elements, and the big whole cherry on top of this is the change to Fire Elemental. There's no more Maelstrom. It's gone, right? Your only Fulmination, Seismic Thunder stacks, no Maelstrom. While Greater Fire Elemental is active, and it would work with Storm Elemental changes the effect. Primal Elemental, Fire Elemental would stay the same, which makes me wonder how Storm Elemental is going to work, because it's just kind of weird and awkward and very only for AoE burst. While it's active, both Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, excuse my eye itches here, have a 100% chance to generate a stack of Fulmination. So it basically gives you 100% of the Fulmination RNG, right? Because it's 50% normally. That gives you 100% on that one. No RNG during the duration. So I was doing something in the dungeon here where I was... Let's see if I can recreate it, basically. So I'm running Surge of Power. A Master of Elements, I'm not going to weave anything. He doesn't attack the stupid target dummy. I don't know why. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to get to 6 stacks here. So 6 stacks. Put up Stormkeeper. I'm going to Earthshock to proc Surge. And then Echoing Shock. And then... yeah. Ah, dang it. What I was hoping for, you saw there. So that was both a Stormkeeper Lightning Bolt with Surge of Power active, which is the 1 to 3 additional elemental overloads. And if you can, obviously it's a little bit rough, you can easily get back to 6 again to again Earthshock to activate Surge of Power for your second Stormkeeper to give you the other Lightning Bolt that's also buffed by 150% damage, the additional Surge of Power buff, and then the guaranteed overload here. But that was a lot of fun. Very bursty, single targety. But that's why Stormkeeper is just so good for AoE and single target, because it's utility, it's versatility in either or. But there's so many build potentials. We talked about this back and forth for a very long time. There's also Aftershock comes into play now here too. Aftershock is now Earthshock has a chance to not consume any stacks of Fulmination, and Earthquake has a chance to not consume any stacks of Seismic Thunder. So on AoE, you build really easily with Chain Lightning overloads. I can't Chain Lightning these mobs anymore, but you build your Chain Lightning overloads. You get your instant Earthquakes out there. It might proc to give you another one right after that. But even on AoE, you're going to build up Fulmination stacks, which means you're going to burn it with something. So you weave in an Earthshock. That procs Surge of Power. And then you've got AoE Flame Shocks on AoE. Well, 2. Right? You got 2. But then you'll cast 2 or 3 more Chain Lightnings, and you're right back to the same rotation. Then you drop an Earthquake, and you drop a Earthshock, and then you got more Flame Shocks again. All the while, your Master of Elements juggling, potentially, you're weaving in your lava bursts, your meatballs on the priority target, potentially. I kind of did this like awkwardly. Base UI in the dungeon is like just a nightmare, but mostly because I'm just used to not having base UI. I'm used to having like actual information on the screen. But then you weave your lava bursts, activate Master of the Elements, buff either your next Chain Lightning, or your next Earthquake, and Aftershock procs, right? What if Aftershock procced on the Earthshock? So you Earthshocked by building Surge of Power, you Flame Shocked, but then you didn't eat your Aftershock proc. So you can Earthshock again to then put up more Flame Shocks, which give you more Master of the Elements weaving because you have more meatball chances. There's a lot of little things going on here. Totem Mastery is actually pretty baseline because you get 1 stack of Fulmination every 5 seconds on top of your little RNG building block, but you also just get Fulmination stacks. And then, of course, Elemental Blast, I said earlier. Elemental Blast eats your Fulmination. So in a very weird kind of hard castery way, I'm just going to try to build stacks here real quick. In a very hard casty kind of way, you just kind of don't use Earthshock anymore. You just hit Elemental Blast. So very, very kind of, and this is with Aftershock potentially. So there is something here. You obviously want to weave your lava bursts into your Elemental Blasts, but you just ate the 4 stacks. And then if you don't eat the 4 stacks and you build up to 8 stacks on your next Elemental Blast, it does more extra damage. Or if you actually have it back to back where you eat, but you don't eat anything, and you want to, it's not going to proc now. But because Surge of Power requires you to eat 6 stacks, which hopefully I said earlier, but I don't think I did now. It requires 6 stacks to be eaten. It's not just hitting Earthshock, right? It's eating 6 stacks of Fulmination. And for some reason now it's never going to do it while I'm actually recording. Of course not. You can easily get right back into a swing where you ignore your Earthshock completely, or you'd weave it in between your other abilities. Obviously, you want to buff the Stormkeeper there. Oh, I double tapped it. I'm bad. So there's something here. This is like super turret, but who knows? Maybe that's actually really good for a fight because not a lot of movement involved. Who knows? I don't know. But you can do Echoing Shock with Elemental Blast as well, like I showed earlier. This is neat that this consumes your sort of builder resource, but not exactly. So you have the choice there on which one you're going to use. But there's a lot here. We jimmer jammed and hemmed and hawed about this for a solid 4.5 hours. The juggler kind of back and forth, this spell, that spell, this spell, that spell, the whole point of how Elemental Shaman feels. The little bit of RNG spliced in there with, of course, Fulmination stacking for both single target and AoE, and then AoE feeding into Earthquakes, and then Earthquakes feeding into, potentially Aftershocks or Master of the Elements weaving and Surge of Power weaving. Or you can go a little bit simpler with Primal Elementalist, just, blast on pure burst, but then you can take Echoing Shock and Stormkeeper just to add to that burst. There's a lot of things happening here with just the decoupling of Fulmination, the change to Fire Elemental, the change to Earthquake, Echoing Shock existing. It definitely makes certain talents. This is a mastery build. We talked about a mastery build on stream today, which could be a thing. No idea. But that is the Elemental Shaman. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. If I've missed something about Elemental or totally overlooked something else. Maybe did like 5 hours today talking about this spec nonstop. And there is some neat interactions in the core of the spec that I would like to see really good Elemental Shamans. So I'm like an amateur Elemental Shaman. I've done a bunch of it in the past. I do it here and there for Mythic Plus, or I've done it in Raid. But I'm not like, I don't have 12 plus years on this class, right? Like I have on Enhancement. I don't have 2 expansions in a row like I do on Havoc. I have like some time. But that is that, of course. Looking for a new mouse, looking for a new keyboard, looking for a new headset. Check out my sponsors down below. Corsair. I really enjoy them. My box is upside down. I have been enjoying them for a very long time. And of course, supporting me through the links down below And the discount code helps me keep doing this and stay on the internet making this stuff. That is that. My longest video recording to date. A lot of things to go over. A lot of like, moments. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. And I'll see you all in the next Shadowlands Alpha testing video coverage where I do this for way too long. But hopefully you enjoy it.